Thanks for joining us on this live August 4th, 2023 Truth Action Project Campfire Chat on monetary reform and the truth about money, plus solutions like more equitable commerce media. I'm Chris Steiner, and I'll be your moderator. We are streaming live on DLive, Facebook, Kick, Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Vaughn Live, and YouTube. This TAP Campfire Chat is a follow-up on the TAP Forum on monetary reform from July 27th, 2023, which you can watch on any one of our 11 video hosting platforms over at our socials page at truthactionproject.org/socials, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. Panelists on the July 27th, 2023 TAP Forum on monetary reform were Chuck Fall, CEO and president of Truth Action Project, whose site is greenlibertycaucus.org, who will be joining us shortly. Rita Jacobs and Howard Switzer from the Green Party join us as well. Howard's sites are monetaryalliance.org, internationalmoneyreform.org, and greensformonetaryreform.org. Wayne Walton is a community currency expert whose free book he co-authored with the late Tommy Kennedy, Our, that's H-O-U-R, Money Jubilee, How to Create Immediate Abundance for Humanity. The free Kindle edition on Amazon you can find at Our, H-O-U-R, moneyjubilee.com. Mike Zarzano is a fellow TAP board member whose sites are countycongress.com, mosaickills.com, and thefloridafix.com. And myself, Chris Steiner, host of Liberation Station radio show at TheLiberationStation.com, and an organizer for wearechangetampa.org, also a fellow TAP board member. And Trina Silvers, fellow TAP board member, joins to help moderate the meeting and read your chats on air. So let's get started with Wayne Walton. Isn't usury, which contrary to popular belief is not just the vague idea of excessive interest on a loan, but is actually any amount of interest on a loan, isn't the highest priority to address for the sake of monetary reform usury?
Usury, just no different than a mosquito or whatever. And rather than blaming them, the Bible commands us to just obey God's law insofar as you cancel debt every 7 years. It's written on the Liberty Bell, you repatriate the land, and you also should have usury-based money. So anyway, my son, I just wanted to put that out there quick because my son's got other things to do, like get ready for bed. So I just wanted to put that out there for him to hear, because we have to teach the next generation how to live free from this paradigm.
Take it over with Mike. Do you have something to add, please?
Yeah, well, we were talking about who was from where. Anyone else that didn't get to mention their location, would you care to do so now?
Okay, yeah, I'm John Olson. John Olson from Maine, and previously 36 years in Hawaii.
All right. Anyone else?
Yeah, Joe Friendly. I'm in Manhattan.
Man, oh, lucky you.
I pick Hawaii.
Well, and I'm in Florida, not far from Trina. We're about 2 hours away from each other. I'm down in Sebring, Florida. But I really appreciated Wayne's comments from that biblical standpoint. That was very interesting. And this is really the core of the matter. We have money changers that have been in existence for, over 2,000 years that were corrupt then and they're corrupt now, and they've only gotten better at what they do.
Hallelujah.
And, yeah. And we really need to consider the biblical perspective, because when you look at the Bible and what Christ did to the money changers, everyone wants to see the real gentle, loving side of the baby Jesus in the manger. But in actuality, he beat them with a cord and he turned their tables upside down. Praise and threw them out of the temple in a very violent manner. So keeping that in perspective, I think it would do us a great service to keep that model of Christ in dealing with the money changers. It's
Hallelujah.
very interesting. You know, we have a situation right now that within maybe days, they're going to roll out the digital currency. And within maybe, months, we could see a situation where they demand us to turn in our FRNs and redeem them for digital currency. And that would put everyone in a very big problem for the most part, unless you're very wealthy and independent. But for the most part, the average Joe would find that situation troubling and perplexing. So this is what we're facing, and I think this is the very near future. So I'll yield for right now and let someone else discuss the situation.
This is Trina, but I just wanted to add real quick that I saw a post today on Facebook earlier that the Whole Foods store, grocery store, if anyone's not familiar with it, in Atlanta, Georgia, now has a device at their checkout where you put the palm of your hand under to read something to pay. And they are not accepting any cash. So I don't know if anyone's seen that meme that's floating around. Now, it was a meme. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, and I'm going to do a quick Google search to see if I can confirm that or not. I don't know if anybody's heard it. Over.
Well, it's certainly the agenda. It's not even hidden anymore. There's people lining up to take implantable devices so that they don't have to carry around credit cards or a phone or whatever.
Yeah, the alphas, huh?
Okay, I found the post, and it's showing the Whole Foods logo. So it says it's located in Atlanta. Over.
Well, Wayne, getting back to whipping the money changers, when people think that they have to have a big confrontation, they're worried that if they set up a community currency that it'll be shut down or they'll be attacked. We don't know of any cases like that, do we? I'm just because I think this is the best way to whip the money changers with the least amount of physical effort.
Well, yeah, there's so we across the country, my wife and I set up 5 usury-free local currencies, which is just barter script. It's nothing fancy. It's effectively, there's no reason businesses, and they currently were doing it actually in Breckenridge before we got there, where they would trade their own gift certificates between stores because, when we had this initiative going, it was 2010, and money's scarce. Money's always scarce. This is generally speaking, we're suffering from too few, digits and slips of pieces of paper. So if you can find another means to supplement that, you're basically creating a more resilient system, and that should be our focus right now. Because as the gentleman mentioned a few moments ago, is that the enemies of humanity are having an avalanche of aggressive behavior to humanity, and their agenda is it's just inundating us because we can't keep up with it, the changes, and people are just trying to make a living and survive. Meanwhile, the level of the tyranny, the dragon has shown its fangs. So it requires of us that we have children. And so what I'm doing with my neighbors is we homeschool, and we once a week I have my own business, and we have the neighborhood kids, and we have an Amish day, and I teach basic skills. I'm a pool contractor, but over the years I've learned how to do simple carpentry. And basically, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, by definition, those are the things that we should be learning. If you're not learning those things, what are you really learning? So we teach the kids to germinate seeds, to grow stuff, to animal husbandry, to carpentry, and to one of the skills is barter. And what is great about barter is that it's survivable. So if there's an EMP or whatever nonsense these rascals choose to perpetrate against humanity, we can survive that. And if you study history of various economic collapses like Argentina or the United States during the Great Depression, and other like Wargle, The Miracle of Wargle is called, it's a movie called Shillings from Heaven. It's free on YouTube, that you can watch the history of various communities when money became scarce and then even more scarce. So much so that you couldn't, people were destitute walking the streets in Argentina. They created organically community currencies, and it wasn't gold and silver because people starving don't have gold and silver, but they do have labor, and they do have their skills, and they do have their humanity, and they do have, stuff around the house that they can barter, and maybe they have chickens, and maybe you can make bread. And we don't need these devils. We can fix all this ourselves.
I agree.
I felt a little inspired.
There we go. Sorry, I muted myself because it is tangible, because community currencies are tangible. I think that the cyber elitists are the ones who are trying to persuade us into digital currencies and things that are not tangible. So one thing I wanted to emphasize, I forgot to mention in the last show, is that the community currencies are have anti-counterfeiting measures like serial numbers, right, Wayne, where they're issued to the businesses, and if there's any suspicion of counterfeit, then the business can be traced back to the serial number as the first step. And then the second step, of course, I mentioned was checking the signature with a master graphoanalyst expert testimony, maybe, if it ever ended up in court. But
here's the deal: is it's local. It's local, so you're trading with your neighbors, so you end up learning each other's signatures, and it's a beautiful thing. It's love, you know what I mean? It's loving your neighbors and creating something that everybody knows that this system is built on sand, and the collapse is going to be great. So people instinctively know, regardless of their political persuasions, that it would be far better to have stronger localism, local self-sufficiency. And part of that local self-sufficiency is just doing business with your neighbors and sourcing your food and necessities local.
If I may, I just saw in the chat, Mr. John Olson made an excellent point that, what about, paying your electric bill, your phone bill, other bills of commerce that maybe aren't connected to your bartering community currency? I mean, these are valid questions that real world Joe, Common Sally want to know, how are they going to be able to do this? And I'm not, discrediting the community currency idea, but it is a valid question. And where, if I may, Wayne, I would like to ask you, where in America is a community currency succeeding the best, or that you know of? Do you have any idea?
I'm very focused on the usury abolition concept of all this and the biblical solutions. So dealing with the two questions is the one is, where is the most successful? I follow a guy in Holland named Anthony Michels, and he is an operating physical and digital usury-free system that provides credit usury-free, no interest, for regular people. It costs, and it has convertibility with the dominant currency, meaning you can exchange it for a discount with the euro. And because he's an active, I've just known him a long time, and he's just excellent on history and the necessary topics, that he has an outstanding solution. And because his is the best, I really only focus on his. So that's the one issue. And then the other issue was with respect to paying, non-local bills. So the plan of action is to build self-sufficiency first, as much as possible. And self-sufficiency is part of what we were talking about with the Feast of Tents, is learning to be more tribal and not dependent upon the various. If you think of what the Amish did, they've obviously been subverted to various degrees than what they were 500 years ago or 400, but they will be much better in a position to survive all of this as it goes down. Now, in the interim, how do you pay for electricity? What we're planning to do is we're actively working on solar. I had a 40-acre off-grid survival property in Colorado. We're now in Florida, but you need some people in your community to have some solar. And among my neighbors, one of my neighbors already has solar, but he doesn't have a battery bank. So anyway, all of this is going to require all of the skills and all of the talents of the community to overcome these problems, because there are absolutely, this wasn't something that was perpetrated over a few years. This has been a 2,000+ year plan that these guys repeatedly do. The Tower of Babel always rejects God and builds an idol unto itself, so that there's nothing they can, they're trying to create new forms of beings, because God didn't do a good enough job, apparently. So what I suggest is that, as a for instance, how do you overcome the petrodollar? How can you get fuel oil? In Summit County, one of the members was a business called Summit Grease Recycling. And we made a video where he had an event and we fueled a vehicle with grease, biodiesel, which was created right in the community, and it was paid for with a money source, Mountain Hours, which was created right in the community. So it has absolutely zero, I understand that's not for everybody, but it's a step in the right direction. And by the way, Henry Ford did it with hemp, right? So we have to solve these problems because it's an existential necessity.
I want to urge our considering the situation of our founding fathers, Jefferson, Washington, that whole gang, that they were in a situation where power was in royalty, and they said, we're going to create a democracy as an alternative. And we want to redistribute that power so that we can create a sharing of power. And I would say, or that helps me to get some perspective on now, that we have a relatively small number of individuals who have more money than some large fraction of our population. And so we're in the same situation as Jefferson and Washington, that we need to create a democracy again in terms of a sharing of power. And that is the logic, the justification of our creating a peaceful revolution. And I propose that we create a government in waiting for a peaceful transition, that when we have what we want, then we say, okay, now we switch over, and that includes a redistribution of wealth.
That's Jubilee.
Yeah.
Joe, if I may respond to your point there, the founders did not create a democracy; they created a republic, and there is a difference. It's the democracy part of this equation that is actually causing the problem. Mob rule, and we need to get back to a constitutional republic as we were originally given. And the problem has been that we, the people, have become a mobocracy. And the democracy word really needs to be identified properly so that, we can get back on track. And I don't think it's just semantics. I really think, words mean things, and the structure of our government, as the Constitution says, is a Republican form of government. And I'm not being partisan in any way, shape, or form here. I'm more independent than I am Democrat or Republican. So I really think that's I appreciate your comments, but that one particular word I take difference with in regard to the structure and the style of our government. I yield.
Well, I don't think the problem is mob rule, though. I believe that the people who have the power are not oriented to the best interest of the public in their decisions. The corporations think in terms
Well, that's
of
the mob.
A very tiny mob.
oh, a tiny
That's the
mob.
mob.
Oh,
The
like
the mobsters and the banksters.
well,
And their biggest depositors.
oh well, okay. If we're only talking about a small group, I thought when you say mob, it sounded like a large number.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with the defining democracy as something other than of and by for the people. You know, government by and for the people.
What you're saying, you would like it to be that way, or?
Well, I define democracy that way. I don't think we have any democracies around that I know of. But
I do agree. Yeah. Okay, so we do want to create government of, for, and by the people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we definitely agree with that, of, by, and for we the people, but it is stated in the Constitution that we are guaranteed a Republican form of government. And, you know, words mean things. And we need to, I'm sorry, I'll yield. Go ahead.
I was just thinking, it says the purpose of our government in the first sentence. All that other stuff, you know.
In the preamble?
Yeah, the very first, you know, is what the purpose of the government was to do. And then the Constitution gave them the tools to do that.
Well, it says it's to provide for the common defense.
Common defense, you know, promote the general welfare, all that stuff, you know.
Yeah, promote it, not provide it.
That's right. But the thing is, see, if you don't control the money, you can't do anything.
That's right. That's right. I think North Dakota is where we really need to look. They have had a
You know, that's a public bank, but they just got taken over by the oil company and the politics of the time. You know, they're not.
Well, in principle, I guess I should say, yeah.
You know, they're not farmers, which is what they were intended for. Right?
Yeah, in the beginning, right. Yeah, you make a valid point, Howard.
And so, Wayne, you're talking about the people who control the currency granting their own jubilee, and you know, it seems like it's kind of a precarious position to want to move out of your parents' house, being the gangster's house, and find your own freedom, but wondering whether there's freedom to be found. And someone in the chat is asking, Matthew C is asking, is it possible to have one foot in the system and one outside of it? Will it even be possible to not be part of it? As John pointed out, you need basic utilities, which will be part of the system. So what can we do? Can't we just start devoting some of our time and resources into community currencies or other equitable commerce media that we mentioned? Or you know,
well, as a solution,
I'll answer the question based on my experience is that you can find opportunities that will maybe be less frequent but more lucrative, you know, so you could make a greater amount of money in a shorter period of time with the more connections you make. So what do you think, Wayne, or anyone else would like to answer that?
just, you know, just as a real world example is with the with a community currency, what happens is that you know, like kind of in a way, like think of how you know, you might get a gift card and people pass those on as gifts. You know what I mean? Like it might be a restaurant that you don't go to or whatever. And that's what it is. It's an IOU effectively, because when you receive one, there's you know, you go look at the website and you see the list of businesses that accept it, but that money is good at those local businesses. It's not good at the Walmart, right? Well, isn't that exactly what we want to limit, right? Isn't exactly you know, this globalist Borg that's taken over the planet where everything's made in China? It's not natural. And this restores a natural relationship with your neighbors. And what it then does is, because they've got the local currency, they'll look at all their expenses, and the things that they can pay for with the local currency, they'll use the local currency, and then they can take their scarce Federal Reserve note money and pay those other things, the bank monopoly businesses. So there's solutions. And by the other thing I wanted to add is, once you have self-sufficiency, then you can hire enforcers. Once you can hire enforcers, you then have protection. You can cancel the debt. You no longer have to pay into the system at all. And this can become the dominant system in a very tiny area. Think of like Luxembourg or something like that, and you can create a city-state with its own government that actually cancels debt every 7 years, and it repatriates the land so that there's an even distribution of wealth among the people, where they did in the Bible, they passed out lots. So even the most powerful man wouldn't necessarily get the nice Gulf Coast, the oceanfront property, on the sea coast of the Mediterranean or whatever, right? So this is God's wisdom, and insofar as the government goes, in God's wisdom is judges of tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands. The U.S. Constitution forbids debt cancellation in the 14th Amendment.
Of course, it's not outside of history that those things have actually happened, and the states come in and shut them down and arrested the leaders. That's also happened.
So that's, by the way, that's why all the big names in the Bible were public enemy number one.
What I want to say is that there's no one right way. That what you're talking about, I have no disagreement with, because we do need to do it at the local level. And that's a very powerful thing. That's where the need is. But we also have a powerful state that we need to deal with, because if we don't deal with it, it's going to deal with us. And that's the issue for everybody. And so that's why we're with organizations that are wanting to do the state currency, a national currency that's non-usurious. And then we're also supportive of local currency initiatives and public banking initiatives, for that matter. We just don't think it's a major solution without changing the money first. And there's no problem with dual currencies either, that's certainly a possibility as well. But stamp script, Irving Fisher wrote a manual on how to do stamp script and duplicate the Wordle Merkle.
Irving Fisher.
Irving Fisher, yeah, it's online, Wayne.
Oh, thank you. I haven't heard that name. I'm always
Irving
interested.
Fisher was a prominent economist in the 30s. He was considered one of the foremost in the world. And everybody had a lot of money invested in the stock market, and when it crashed, he lost a bundle. He led the charge somewhat on the Chicago plan. He also tried to get them to do the Wordle currency thing as an emergency measure.
The Wordle, you've heard of Wordle?
Oh yeah, it was world famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen the movie?
Yes, I have.
Oh, excellent. I can't recommend it enough. It's actually very well done.
And that $100 bill story is just great. That's an old Depression story.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandparent, or my parents were raised in the Depression. So I always and I grew up in the Amish, Allentown, and I went to college in Shippensburg. So I was around the Amish growing up. And I think they've got a lot of things right.
Yes, right. I think so too. We've taken the wrong turn. We need to do what they call in Africa, it's called Sankofa. And it's like going back and finding where you took the wrong turn.
Hallelujah to that.
Sure.
That's it. That's what honestly, is that exactly what campfire stories are really supposed to be?
Yeah.
The campfire stories are specifically meant that the lessons of our ancestors are not lost, because they get these lessons that threaten the dominant paradigm are deliberately hidden in the dominant educational and media system. You know, it's it's removed from the culture.
Yes, right. Which really alters the values.
Yeah, like I always say, it's like, how come we work and we need money, but none of the animals do? it's nobody ever wants to answer that question without some kind of ridicule.
Well, certainly, I think because the bankster gangsters want to be worshipped, you know, as the ones who provide, you know, all these resources. It seems like, you know, politicians get that attitude too. At the county commission meeting, we were trying to end water fluoridation. Some of them felt like we shouldn't be complaining that we're the ones giving you the water. Shouldn't be complaining about being overcharged either when the rates keep going up. But Wayne, wanted to segue here and let Chuck Fall, who just joined us, have a chance to add. He was the panelist on the last TAP forum on July 27th here. And he's president CEO of Truth Action Project here and board members. So let's see, Chuck Fall, do you have anything to say?
Hey, I'm here only briefly and I'm traveling, but I was able to sneak away and dial in. This sounds like a fantastic conversation. I'm really delighted that that you all are together. And one of the goals of TAP is to produce dialogue and really go deep and explore. And you know, I think that's happening here from what I'm gathering. I just, you know, came in just midstream. But you know, I picked up on, I posted a couple remarks in the chat. You know, you know, I mean, there's debate about the word democracy in TAP. We have that argument. Fundamentally, we're all committed to, you know, integrity in our republic and correcting the corruption and the rot that's been building. And we all agree that the money issue is critical. And the challenge I'm finding is, how do we kind of meet the imagination of the American people? And you know, I like to talk about, you know, as we the people in effect rent our money, we don't really own it. People can understand that kind of distinction. And now the you know, doing things in cash is actually downright revolutionary. If you listen to Ed Dowd, you know, that was a remark he made on one of his studies, and he's very interesting. So I'm really delighted. This is a very interesting. You guys keep going. In closing, I did post in the chat, the whole story of the Amish is very interesting. And Wayne, I guess you would say, I don't know if you invoke the authority of them or evoke them as a group that is a standout. Not even and I'm one of the things I think Chris talked about, that he would produce a COVID program looking at healing from the vaccine, some of the origin stories and so on. But the Amish are a basically control group. You know, we could use them to measure, compare to mainstream society on multiple levels. And I think the COVID one is, I hope that is one that I think should be made. And I hope some journalists pick up on that.
Yeah, they're pure blood.
Pardon?
They're pure blood. Exactly right. I agree.
They are. So I really appreciate that you raised the Amish and their story. And I think we could make a lot of progress just debating, you know, comparing, you know, the quality of their life, the quality of ours, because I think fundamentally we are making as a, you know, kind of as a green, we're, you know, calling on ecological wisdom, and the Amish, I mean, do that. And part of our problem is this emerging, this present technocracy and the emergence of a mad scientist group that in effect runs things. So I'll close with this. I'm going to be signing off and wish you guys well. Is to Howard's concern is about the problem of the power of state. And so going local is something that's also very important that we be exploring. So Wayne's on the mark, I think, for sure. But I think Howard's point is, you know, we have to talk on multiple levels. There is no one right way. So, hey, you guys, keep going. I'm going to be listening a little bit and then I'm peeling off. I'm traveling right now. So Have a great evening. Thanks for calling on me, Chris. Take care, guys. Peace.
Great, thanks, Chuck. Yeah, take care and enjoy your vacation. And thanks for so much supporting TAP and getting us on the road to our rebranding from 9/11 TAP to just TAP, so we can cover more topics than just 9/11. And check us out once again at truthactionproject.org, folks. So let's get back to the conversation. If anyone else would like to join in or read a comment from the chat room, maybe. Is there, Trina, is there anything I might have missed?
Sorry, I wanted to come off mute. I don't see anything really in the chat that I could read out unless, well, Mike asked a question, but Sally has put in quite a few comments. I didn't know if she would like to come off mute and speak or not. I don't want to put her on the spot for sure. And then Ross Mira is putting some comments in the chat. I don't know if anyone would like to come off mute and speak, or if you want Chris or I to read the chat.
Well, if I may, I have a question that I'd like to pose to everyone. If you were offered by the federal government a $2,000 a month allowance by the Fed to start using coin, would you do it? I don't think many of us would, maybe none of us would, but I think most people out here in the world today, in America, the middle class, the lower middle class especially, would jump on that opportunity in a second to receive $2,000 a month of digital currency, spendable as if it were hard cash. This is what we're facing. This is how they're probably going to introduce the system of cashless society. They're going to crash our economy, and then they're going to offer people, like they already did during COVID, the COVID scamdemic. They offered many people large sums of money, and they took it gladly. And I think this is going to be a way that they introduce it to the nation. So if we could, maybe let's talk about that. Is that a likelihood? I yield.
Thank you, Mike. And we have two hands up. I didn't see which order they came up in, though. Howard, do you want to go first, or would you like to let Sally go?
Yeah,
We have three hands up, so Ross's just went up, but Sally and Howard's I saw first.
Well, I had just wanted to talk about how we could expand this conversation, and I was concerned about silos. You know, about I see a lot of groups today. I saw one their protest is still trying to get vinyl chloride banned, that's a chemical that people use, and I'm thinking, you know, golly. There are so many of these things, and all of them are connected to money, which controls public policy. And public policy is what we need to fix all of those things. And so it just drives me nuts to see that so much energy put into what are really symptoms that nothing will be done about because they don't have to. And they're making money off of it. And it's just a terrible situation. But I was just thinking if people had ideas about how to draw in some of this energy that's out there scattered and try to get it focused on changing the money. I'm
Thank
sorry,
you, Howard.
like taking it off to another direction from where we were, so I'm sorry about that.
No, no worries.
Yeah.
Sally, would you like to go ahead and go next since you have your hand up? And then Ross, you'll be after Sally.
Yeah, there's so much to this. I actually work in financial services, so I think a lot about this stuff as it's happening. I mean, we have to understand that most people are totally, mainstream media has brainwashed people and dumbed them down. Between them and public education, most people have no clue what a constitution is, what freedom is, what the Declaration is. They don't know who the first president was. So we have to realize we're dealing with a very ignorant society that doesn't truly appreciate it. These younger people who are really clueless and think communism is wonderful, they don't know what it's going to be like when they don't get to use that cell phone anytime they want to, or when they can't just go out there and do whatever they feel like doing, and when they got to get a permit to travel across the country. They have no clue. That is one of the biggest challenges we have here. I have spoken, I don't know how many times I've talked to people, because again, I work in financial services. When I ask them what they think the digital currency is, what if they have any clue what CBDC is, and of course they don't. And when I say digital currency, they just say, well, it's just like a debit card. They don't understand that they're going to have to get approval to use their card, to go spend their money. If we don't get past that part, I don't know how much we can do about anything else. Jefferson, of course, warned us about a central bank. A central bank was more dangerous to us than a military or whatever, and I think we see this all coming true. Again, with the ignorance, how many people have any clue that the Federal Reserve is truly a private entity of a bunch of private bankers? They have no clue. And as long as we're going to keep supporting and promoting a private central bank, we're going to keep getting stuck by them. And the answer isn't easy of how to go out there and put a new banking system in there. It isn't easy. I would hope with all is every billionaire in the United States of America a communist? Are they all this way, or do any of them care about trying to get rid of ESG and of course the central bank and this kind of stuff? I'm not a millionaire. If I was a billionaire, I'd be investing in gold and I'd start my own bank and then we go that way. But unfortunately, I don't have those kind of resources. How come we can't seem to get, are all rich people evil? It's like, why can't we get some good people to come together? I don't have a whole lot to invest. If we could get a group of people to invest in a regional bank with a gold standard, with something else, we could start getting something else happening here. But it takes money, and you also have to get past the ignorance and a propaganda media that totally lies. Now, I put stuff out there in reference to the U.S. corporation, which is a bigger problem than most people realize. Most people don't really understand how our government works these days and what it's supposed to do. And then also this executive order of 12803. Is anybody here familiar with that one? And the reason it's important is because literally the president, because he was a president of a corporation, a CEO, George H.W. Bush, put it out there. Anybody could buy public assets. They could buy our infrastructure. They could buy our schools. They could buy our hospitals. They could buy anything. They literally did. People are wondering why China owns half of the country. Well, because George H.W. Bush put it on the market to sell. So we have so much foreign takeover of this country as well, which is impacting us too. It may not be currency in the same sense, but what do you think it is when China comes in and wants to buy up all this land right next to the military? Why they bought up, it had a 99-year lease for the Long Beach, Port Long Beach over in California, which was a military base. And that was Clinton who did that deal. We have so many problems across the board here. The money obviously is a key piece of it, but if we don't get some good people to come together, I don't think we have a chance. I could talk forever on this, but I'll stop there because I probably already ranted too much.
Sounds like
good, Sally.
education is what you're recommending.
No, I agree that what we're dealing with is fascism because the government is a corporation, and I think you're talking about that 1871 law from actually found out about it back in the 90s. So I'm pulling my old text file. It's 16 United States Statutes at Large, 419, 41st Congress, Session 3, Chapter 62, an act to provide a government for the District of Columbia. And I did double check this text file online since then, but it says that be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States and Congress assembled, that all that part of the territory of the United States included within the limits of the District of Columbia be, and the same is hereby created into a government by the name of the District of Columbia, by which name it is hereby constituted a body corporate for municipal purposes, and may contract and be contracted with, sue and be sued, plead and be pleaded, have a seal and exercise all other powers of a municipal corporation, not inconsistent with the Constitution and laws of the United States and the provisions of this act. So that's the first paragraph, and it points out that we are fascist, because what could be more corporatist or fascist than privately owned bank, the Federal Reserve, issuing the currency and credit at interest. And, you know, we have so many other examples of fascism that I think it's important to point out for the communists who will say that communist has never been tried. Well, how about here in America? What have we had since 1913? Certainly hasn't been capitalism, which they so oftenly blame. But, you know, capitalism is defined as private property ownership, and unless they're willing to give up their private property, you're not truly a communist. But what we have right now isn't capitalism, it's fascism. And, you know, the Fed, of course, being able to finance whatever businesses that they like, and you know, pick winners and losers. And the president's, what was that executive order under Reagan? It's the president's working group on financial markets, also known as the plunge protection team, where the president can decide where to pump up the markets and what businesses to pump up to make it look good and inspire market confidence to, of course, and encourage us to do more luxury spending on, you know, unnecessary items. So just to encourage keep our false hopes up. So I just wanted to, you know, make those distinctions: capitalism, communism, and fascism, and how to identify them. And I don't know if Sally or anyone else would like to respond.
Partnerships. Yeah, just kind of add to that, the public-private partnerships, and see, it has nothing to do with parties. Okay, they're both the parties are corrupt on this stuff, and because I know it was plenty of Republicans who are out there, including the ones here in Florida, that public-private partnerships. So this way we're going to have the private sector do this. Well, no, now you've got the government's got the corporation. The U.S. corporation is now a stakeholder in your business, and they're going to control what you say to do. I'm going to be having a blog talk show on Monday, and we're going to talk about what we got to do to get away. We have to break away from the corporation, for one thing, and start being true, independent, free market society again. And I mean, there's a lot to it, but that's all. It's great information. That's exactly. I totally agree with everything Chris was just saying, because that is it. And how do we stop it? This happened. This has happened quietly and peacefully over years, and people, especially back then when there was so little technology for communication. And now we've got such a public education system that worries about transgendering people, not to anything else. It's just crazy. But we have to come up. We have to totally reject what the corporation is doing. We have to educate our elected, because most of them don't know any of this either, and tell them that we don't want to be part of the U.S. corporation. We want to be a state. We want the 10th Amendment. We want to be a state, not part of the corporation. And in the case of Florida, it's been proven, and I had somebody just check again, Florida is a donor state. We give more money to the federal government than we get from it. So why do we keep having this umbilical cord to the federal government when we can take care of ourselves? But most people don't even think about that. We have more money than what the federal government gives us. Why we're donating more? Gas taxes are one of the most common ones that people talk about. So cut the change with a corporation, and let's be an independent state again, and working at the state level is what we were talking about. I don't know, that's just one approach to it, but I am looking for a patriotic billionaire who might want to help save the country.
Same here.
Thank you, Sally.
Thanks, Sally.
Yeah, thank you.
And
let's call on Ross. Yeah, I was going to say thank you, Chris.
Ross, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, this is Ross Mueller, and wanted to make a comment. I think the good news is that the Fed and the fiat currency system has been designed to fail. So we will see a failure of the fiat currency system. We won't need to do anything about that. It's going to happen. It's part of the design, of the nature of how they print the money and reissue the credit. So that's inflationary, and it will end up failing. They know this. They've known it since they started. Now, what they're going to do, they're going to obviously have a lot of power at this point. When they do fail, they will own all the stocks, all the land. And what they decide they want to do with it as their plan B is, what we have to hope for is that there's some overriding humanity somewhere in there that overtakes their, their viciousness and has some compassion towards humanity and relinquishes the bone or gives the bone back to the people and allows them to survive without destroying the infrastructure. Most of the infrastructure they built is fairly useless, but a lot of it is useful. If they decide to blow everything up, we're going to be in a big world of hurt. If they decide to be compassionate, the majority of some of these criminals at the top, they will give us the power without destroying the infrastructure. But at that point, we need to see a silver lining here, and we need to start to preempt that and start to say, well, what do we want? Nobody really talks about their vision as to really what they want, except for in terms of the old kind of governments. And I think the old systems of government will no longer apply in that kind of world. I think what we're going to need is a new approach. And I think there's some basic dreams that we have to start with. Martin Luther King, I have a dream. And my dream is that, number one, they have to give us new twin towers in any city that wants them. The goal should be the largest twin towers or the largest buildings of any buildings in a particular city, like Omaha, Nebraska, or Wisconsin somewhere. Any city that wants towers can get them rebuilt. The reason I say that is not because of the sentimentalism and memorializing the towers. That's a very minute part of it. The towers happen to be the most efficient type of buildings ever built. It was the true definition into the future of what modernism should mean in architecture. Basically one word, efficiency. Now we're going to need efficiency in our buildings going forward with the rate at which we're destroying the environment. What I mean by that, square footage, instead of just destroying the topsoil, gets converted into multiple floors of topsoil regeneration. For example, the Twin Towers, 1 acre gets transformed into 110 acres with an efficient elevator system. Obviously, you're not going to be building Twin Towers at that size in every city, but they should be. The goal is to make them as the tallest buildings in the city as a beacon of hope and as a reuse. I'm not going to be using them for banking offices, obviously. They need to be used as eco hospitals and or agricultural use. And there's a variety of different things, different sizes the Twin Towers and their efficiency can be used for that would be very effective in preserving nature and helping out your local community. We need those kind of buildings. We don't have those kind of buildings. We haven't even thought about those kind of buildings. So that's number one. Number two, we need a permanent final war museum, that is the Pentagon being converted into a museum which tells the truth about those wars that we have abandoned, and that modus operandi of pushing the currency using war, that's been abandoned. We need this war museum that tells the truth about wars. That's number two. Number three, we need the Patriot Act, of course, and all those subsequent National Defense Authorization Act. They need to be rescinded, obviously. They're going to be completely abolished. And along with that, we have a period of what we call deconstruction, like reconstruction after the Civil War in our Constitution. We have a deconstruction where we take it back to the original Constitution and then take it even further towards individual human rights and sovereignty. That's just a new thing that has to be done in terms of reversing the Patriot Act and all those horrible after effects of what we're living through today. The fourth thing is to open the internet. We need the technology. We don't want to go back so far that we're going back into nature, which is what we need to do, but we don't need to go back into nature without technology. We can use the technology. The technology is being abused and it's destroying humanity and the planet, but it doesn't have to be that way. The technologies we have can be used without abusing them and can support the planet and humanity. So we want an open internet with a fair use of technology, a responsible use of technology. And then the last piece of the real puzzle is economic reform. And that's got a lot of aspects to it. You know, you've got to have monetary reform, obviously. You've got to have respect for retirement benefits in some shape or form. You have to have planned in obsolescence. We need a new economy, not based on the Edward Bernays formula of desire versus need, but the Amish style of an economy. And along with many other types of economic reforms that we all know about that have not been enacted for obvious reasons. So if we can come together, I think, with a dream And if the elites can decide to be compassionate when this thing ends, and they don't go for a plan B, which is violent or produces even more control, because of course the bottom line is for them, besides the money, is the control. It's been that way for centuries. It's all about the money is how they control people. Their desire is to control people. So if they can give up, they're going to give up the money because they're going to have to. Are they going to reinstitute a new system of control? Looks like they're going to try, maybe. But maybe not. Maybe they're going to realize the game is up. Plan B needs to be more.
Must have lost him, huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say, does anyone else have audio? Because I lost.
Oh, I guess we lost him.
Ross.
I have audio.
We lost Ross.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was my issue for a second, so I stopped talking. I was looking around here. Well, I guess I'd like to respond, but unless someone would like to go first to what what Ross had to say.
I'd like to respond to some of it. He has good ideas and things that we need to have done and so on. And the problem is that we will need some kind of a large movement to get any of those things accomplished. And in order to do that, we have to educate a lot of people about what in the world is going on and what needs to be done, and get some movements going. We see that we have all these peace organizations that want to end wars, and they're scattered all over the place, and they don't get together and form any kind of a unified anti-war activity. And so nothing's happening. And not that it would anyway under the circumstances, but and one of the things that we try to do in the Green Party, in our committee, tries to get the other committees that deal with these issues to understand that none of these things that they want done are going to happen unless we change this money system where money controls everything. And it's the monetary system is what supports and is underlying to what they call capitalism. Until we do something about that, we're not going to have anything done with the climate problems, not going to have anything done to end the wars, and it's a matter of educating people, and that's our primary mission statement for our committee, is to educate members of the Green Party and the public about what the monetary issue is all about, because nobody knows, nobody understands that, and they don't understand how important it is in order to get all these other changes that they want. So and I don't know how to make them understand that. We've tried, but people don't want to listen to anything having to do with the economics or money problems or anything else. So anyway, that's my thought.
Yeah, and to add to that, with what Ross was saying, that we could nationalize, I think, is what he's indicating, the Federal Reserve, that we could actually take back their assets according to the Federal Reserve Act. And I'm reading Section 30 of the Federal Reserve Act 1913 states, quote, "The right to amend, alter, or repeal this act is expressly reserved," end quote. So at any time Congress could, and maybe the Treasury could, we could start a movement to push the Treasury to try to nationalize the Federal Reserve. I know the bankster gangsters would probably assassinate a bunch of people before that happened.
Actually, we had a legislation already written and introduced that would change the system. It would close the Fed and put the essential parts of it into the Treasury. It would make Congress the sole creator of money. And of course, it would be doing it for human needs and the needs of the economy, not speculation on Wall Street, which is where most of the bank money's going. And so I think that would be a big shift if we could get a movement to push that legislation that's already been written and vetted by the legal counsels of Congress to make sure that it comports properly with the law and changing the law. I think that's
so. And Howard, do you have websites I see in the chat room? Do they refer to that initiative? Any or all of them?
Well, yeah, the Monetary Alliance has a petition for that. You can find the act itself on the government site. You know, just Google the NEED Act, HR 2990. And that was presented by Kucinich back in 2011 in response to the 2008 crash. You know, and it was kind of the same thing that the Chicago plan was and the 1939 plan for monetary reform was. It was trying to get the bankers out of our business, out of government, you know, because their money is the governing factor and they control it.
Absolutely. And to that point, I wanted to remind folks that the importance of community gardens, I guess, on a high rise would be an interesting idea. It could be done, but you know, the importance of that is that you can buy, sell, trade, give away your plant seeds, cuttings, knowledge, and build a sense of community and avoid all those factory farm foods that the government is subsidizing, you know, all those poisonous pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, pseudo frankenfoods, GMO foods that the government, you know, wants us to eat. And now society is trying to tell us to be body positive if you're morbidly obese, you know, if you're maybe not sane enough to try to want to be there for your friends and family in the future, but you're positive about your body, I guess. That's good enough. But yeah, I want people to be body positive with
get people back
quality food and mind and spirit positive too. So
yeah,
that's another advantage.
I think if we could get people back on the land, you know, growing soil, growing trees, getting connected in small communities, creating local economies like Wayne's talking about with local currencies and stuff like that. We need to get our soil healed so it can heal the atmosphere. You know, we killed the life in the soil and that destroyed our atmosphere and it's messing up the oceans too. So we got a lot to fix. And I think it's people getting back on the land. If we could get a hold of public policy, we could get parity pricing, which is where raw materials, when they come out, everybody, you know, you can pay for the whole production of the raw materials that you take out. If you do that at the base of the economy, then everybody's wages is good. And so that kind of a system we could implement so that, and it would also allow us to get people back on the land, because I think it would make a land a lot more available, because your big landowners, we should break that whole thing up, because there's no, you know, if you're not making the land production for your community, you shouldn't have that land.
Can I comment on the land thing real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I definitely agree. We've got to get back to nature, if you will. And this is why there's also, unfortunately, a lot of ignorance about solar panels. The solar panels themselves, they do not know how to properly dispose of. So you're already creating another source of harm to the environment. But it's also destroying the land two ways, because you're blocking, you're actually cooking the land underneath it. What's happening with those panels, what it does to the land by itself, and it's also taking away our agriculture, you know, our food supply. So everything to do with these solar farms, plants, whatever you want to call them, is all a lie. It's all garbage, and people have to reject that too. And you have to do that at the local level and understand that it's that U.S. corporation that's handing out the money to the states, and if the states don't do it, they got to give the money back. But people are uneducated on the damage the solar panels do. They're putting them on your house or on a building or whatever else. There's all sorts of ways to use solar energy to the benefit, but not going out there and destroying your land is the answer. And you know, it's insane. But these people, unfortunately, John Kerry has got to be one of the most ignorant people I think I've ever heard. My own personal opinion there. But yeah, anybody can go. Please do what you can to oppose these solar plants because they're destroying the land and our food supply.
Yeah,
Thank
they're
you.
not a sustainable system, and all of the chemicals and processes that it takes is just not worth it to do that kind of a system. We've got
Correct.
away from that
Well,
kind of, like you say,
what that is
you can
forced
do
growth.
your farms where the waste of one system is the feedstock for the next system, and create energy, clean water, do all kinds of producing our food and fertilizer.
Well, the one other thing too, I've just recently heard that now they want to come up with a cloud to block the sun. Well, wait a minute. If you block the sun, aren't you destroying your solar system? Or am I missing something? Am I the one who's clueless here? Or these are just a bunch of idiots? I'm sorry. not a nice word, but that's appropriate.
Not too bright. Yeah, when it comes to the greenhouse effect, I guess they don't know how that works. Whatever however they tell us it works. When it comes to you know, the factory farming, I think that the most important thing is to point out that what they're doing is with these synthetic fertilizers is forming dependence. You know, those three numbers are on the fertilizer bags are the potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus. So those are the three main minerals that most plants need to do well, but or to grow, but they don't do too well. They don't have very good immune systems, and so the farmers feel as if they're dependent on pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides, where if plants had a good immune system, they wouldn't need them. And and so you know, I think it's important to give plants all the minerals, and I found the best way is ionized water through the best absorbed form of minerals, which is ionic form or mineral ions. And by the way, you know, you might have heard of glyphosate, the weed killer, that's so deadly and cancer causing. Well, that actually was originally designed to strip minerals from pipes and strip the mineral ions. So what's the answer to that is to add more mineral ions or ionic minerals. And when I've done that with my water ionizer the last 12 years, just spraying it on the plants from a spray bottle, I just see them grow so much larger, bigger, bumper crops, huge yields, annuals and biennials become perennials. So I think that, you know, if we can learn these very simple technologies, have them in our homes, just to be able to, for our own gardens and to help our neighbors, help people in our community gardens, then we can bypass the false sense of dependence that people have on the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and the fertilizers, which, by the way, are radioactive, you know, being from phosphate mining, like a Mosaic phosphate mining company. It's from their radioactive, you know, refined from the radioactive gypsum stacks. So anyhow, yeah, that's what we really need to get away from. And I see, you know, Ron DeSantis now is, as much as I've been a fan of his on many things, he's signed a bill to allow radioactive roads from phosphate mining to be used as a pilot program here in Florida about about a month ago, I think.
Hey,
So,
Chris.
Yeah, I'll just want to show how much they care about our health. Go ahead, Mike.
If I may, I'd like to interject here. Getting back to the issue, I think Rita brought up an excellent point, and that is whatever we do or want to do, we must have a mass movement to assemble and achieve it. This is very critical. This is something I think many times activists overlook and really don't give it merit. But she hit the nail right on the head. There are lots of great ideas out there, too many to mention. Chris, you were just talking about a few, but there are many great ideas of remedy. But until we can find, and I'm borrowing this phrase from Robert David Steele, who I was fortunate enough to meet before he passed away. He was a CIA case officer and clandestine case officer. And he said anytime they wanted to do something in a foreign land, they had to have a couple things, two components. to achieve their goal. They needed a catalyst and a trigger. And this is what we need in our revolution, in our uprising, within the legal realm of the law, of course. We need a catalyst and a trigger to activate the critical mass. Until we can activate the critical mass, we're just going in circles. And I think there couldn't be probably a better issue to unite left, right, and everybody in the middle than money. And I think this could be the issue that we find the catalyst and the trigger. I yield.
Yeah, I think a good way to do that with a CBDC that's coming along is I want to answer the question. I'm trying to see who asked this. Yes, earlier Sally asked, said we must educate others on CBDC, and I think someone else asked earlier, how do we? Yes, John Olson, who's no longer here, wrote, John from Maine and formerly Hawaii, how can we effectively defeat CBDC? Well, I guess my offering would be that we could tender lawful money, and when they refuse it, we can use the law to show that they've discharged our obligation by refusing it. And if folks want to check out what I mentioned on the last show, on the forum, on my blogs page, the lawful money blog case in 1996, where I plea bargained, so I agreed to pay traffic tickets in the amount of $300. And I went to offer lawful money, which was silver eagles, being from the U.S. Mint, and they were refused. And the judge ruled that my obligation was discharged according to Florida Statute 673.6031, which is the encoding of federal law, the Uniform Commercial Code 3-603, which is the UCC is encoded in most states' laws, which says that if tender of payment is made and it's refused, then the obligation is discharged to the amount of the tender. So, you know, I can see people in videos like a few days ago, a fellow in, I think the UK, he was shouting, I'm paying for my strawberries and legal tender, and I am leaving with my strawberries. And then he proceeds to succeed and eat his strawberries when he leaves the store and hands them out to other people too. So I think that's a good success story to show that, hey, if they don't want to take our money, well, then we'll just take the product because we've tried to pay, we've done our best. I mean, we've acted in good faith. And that's what I think we should do. You know, we should stand on, is that this is currency and that CBD stuff is not. I mean, you can't even hold it. I yield.
This is Wayne. I've got to go put the boys to bed. Since it's a campfire, I wanted to leave you guys with something that may be of interest. Maybe you've seen it already, but I posted a link in the chat about it features Vice Presidential nominee Sherry Honkala when she right around that period of time in 2012, and we made a music video where it's about monetary reform and debt cancellation, where basically the Jubilee sheriff is hired with the local currency, and then the stormtroopers come in, and then the stormtroopers get hired by the local currency, and then everybody has a celebration, and the foreclosure is stayed. So that link is in there if you guys are interested in something like that. I have to say good night, and I want thank you for giving me this platform to speak to you all, and good night.
Good night, Wayne.
Good night.
All right.
Wayne.
I've got to
Thanks
say,
for all your hard work.
and
We'll be in touch. Take care.
yeah, it's been terrific, Wayne. Look forward to meeting with you some more. And I've got to go too, folks. So take care.
Thank you, Wayne and Howard both. And I do think we're winding down here at the bottom of the hour. We were scheduled for 90 minutes. So I thank everybody for coming, and everyone have a great weekend.
Good night, Dragon Slayers.
Yay.
Hey.
Thanks for that video.
Thank you.